I just want to start off by saying that you cannot change your hip structure, period. Your bone structure is something that you cannot change, and you cannot control where your fat is distributed on your body. But what you can do is grow certain muscles to enhance the look and shape that you want, which is what this video is all about. Hi everyone, my name is Emily, and my content is all about shaping your body the way that you want based on your goals, your needs, and your bone structure. If this is not your goal, if you don't care about how your glutes grow, you just want them to grow, then don't worry about this video. Don't worry about anything I'm gonna say from here on out, because this video is not for you, and it's just for people who want to pay closer attention to the size and the shape of their glutes. So today we're gonna cover side glutes. So starting right off the bat, what are side glutes? So they are the minimus and the medius, and I'm gonna get into both a little later on, but first I wanna emphasize the difference between the shelf and side glutes, because I see them being used interchangeably. So when we talk about the shelf, right, people think, oh, it's the glute medius. No, it's not. The shelf is the projection or the upper portion of the glutes when you turn to the side and you see that like hill. That is your upper glute maximus, okay? So in order to target that, that's your lunges or anything with the hip flexion that requires you to go up and down. Now your side glutes are the minimus and the medius, okay? Now the reason why they get confused is because the glute medius is part of the upper portion, right? It makes sense. It's like, okay, like that's where the muscle is at, so I guess that's what I need to work on. But just because you grow the medius does not mean that you have a shelf. And I'm gonna put a photo here of when I focus on my medius growth and how I lost projection or the hill upper portion of the glutes. Any workouts that recruit the upper glutes is wholly comprised of the glute maximus and a tiny bit of the medius. And that's why you see that projection up there, because a lot of these workouts, they grow the entire glute, and when you grow the entire glute, naturally, so does the overall shape. The side glutes, the glute medius and minimus, are different, right? When you focus and you isolate that muscle, it doesn't give you that projection. Instead, from the front, it gives you the illusion of wider hips. Just because you grow your medius and your minimus does not mean that you're gonna have a shelf. Quite the contrary, actually. Growing your medius and minimus minimizes the look of the projection of the glute, as you can see here. So in these two photos, I actually gained 4 inches on my hips, but you can't see the glute maximus growth as much as the top portion because the glute medius and minimus have grown a lot. Try to figure out your goals and what you're trying to achieve more. Unfortunately, you can't focus 100% on both just because you need to put emphasis on one over the other, right? That's a fact. We have to dedicate around 4 to 6 workouts each leg day, and there's only so much you can do, right? So you either focus on your maximus and do a little bit of accessory movements for the side glutes, or what I did was I put half of my focus on glutes and half of my focus on the side glutes, but we're gonna talk about that later. Now let's talk about our bone structure, okay? So our bone structure determines how our glutes look on us, and that includes the femur and our pelvic structure all around. I talk about this a little bit more in the training for your glute shape video if you wanna get into that later, but that's essentially how and why all of us look very different. Not just in our hips, but also everywhere in our body. So for example, if you have a wide hip bone structure, naturally your hips are gonna look wider than your upper portion, and you have that traditional hourglass body. And let's say you have a narrow hip, then that's gonna look very different than someone who has an hourglass figure, for example. So for me, I have very narrow hips. So side glute growth is only gonna go so far, since again, you cannot change your bone structure. So if you wanna look more into that, check out that video to determine your actual bone structure and glute shape. Now let's get into the medius versus the minimus, and exactly what are they? So the medius is located in the top of the glute portion area where the hip bones are at, and they are recruited a lot to stabilize your position. They control the plane motion of the hip area. They provide stability for your hips and the assisted flexion and the rotation of the hip. When the medius grows, it gives the illusion of a longer hip, if that makes any sense. So the top portion grows and it elongates your hip area. Here's a before and after of when I focus on the glute maximus versus the glute medius. As you can see, my butt looks a little bit longer and more full all around. Now for the glute minimus, it's located right under that. Essentially, it shares kind of the same functions as the medius, but a little bit different. So it acts with the medius to stabilize you, to abduct specifically, and to internally rotate your leg. So not only does it stabilize you, but it also acts in abduction. So your leg is going in and out. That's its function. So when that grows, it's less of a change as you would see in the medius. However, when it grows, you can see it contributes to that under glute heart shape. Here's also a before and after of when I focus a little bit more on my minimus. And as you can see, it just looks more heart shaped, bottom heavy vibes. You know what I mean? Again, my fat distribution did not change. All of this is muscle growth, 100%. So let's get into the research. You guys know me, psych majors, you know what I'm talking about. We had to do so much research and we had to break down the research, evaluate the results and everything like that. So I took what I learned in college and I just put it towards fitness. So this research article that I evaluated, as you can see on the screenshot over here, they looked at rehabilitation exercises and what specifically activated the glute medius along with the glute maximus, but I looked at the medius only. Now, keep in mind, this was only evaluated not for hypertrophy, but for rehabilitation exercises, which is something that I always noted in my TikTok videos and when I evaluated. So it's not specifically training for growth, but it's just what activated that muscle the most, okay? So the higher the MVIC percentage, the more it recruited that muscle, just so you're aware. And they found that from the highest to the lowest, the exercises were side plank abduction, the single leg squat, clamshell progression, and the front plank with hip extension. Now, realistically, okay, out of all these workouts, in order to progressively overload, which is what you need to grow muscle, only 2 of them stood out to me: clamshell progression and the single leg squat. Now, at first I was super skeptical. Like, I have never seen anyone do any of these workouts, let alone like hear about them for the glute medius. But that's what I did for the past 6 months. For the past 6 months, I decided to test it out, add it to my routine, and girl, the results do not lie. I was super surprised when I saw that they actually do grow the muscle that they say that they're gonna grow. And even though this research article was focused on rehabilitation exercises, I had no problem seeing the growth in hypertrophy training. And I have a bunch of videos on that on my TikTok if you're interested. But those are the exercises that not only recruit the glute medius the most out of any single movement, but also I saw growth through it. Now for the glute minimus. So this systematic review looked at all of the rehabilitation exercises and therapeutic exercises that recruit the glute minimus the most. And again, to reiterate, these only looked at therapeutic practices and not specifically hypertrophy, because I don't think there has been a research article, or at least free ones that I found, that focused on that muscle. But this one concluded that the top movements that recruited the minimus were the hip abduction, hip clamshells, single leg bridge, and standing hip abduction. And you can progressively overload on all of these workouts, by the way. Again, I did the experiment since there wasn't any study out there, and as you can see, the results speak for themselves. Also, I do Pilates around 1 to 2 times a week, and I do notice that they incorporate a lot of glute minimus movement on there, and that's how people see results, because you add weight or resistance to the workouts that you're doing, and you're gonna be able to see the changes. So just to recap, glute medius, clamshells, and single leg squat. And for the glute minimus, hip abduction, hip clamshells, single leg bridge, and hip abduction. So how do you know what to focus on? All right, so you're gonna focus on the medius if you have a heart shape, or you're missing that top portion of the glutes and it's just very bottom heavy and you just want to round out the entire glute. You're going to focus on the minimus if you already have a wide hip bone, prominent hip dips, so you naturally have fat on your hip area, or you have love handles, and you're looking to fill in that in between portion of the bottom and the top glute. But you might need to be a little more specific than that, a little more detailed, and that's what my training for your glute shape video is for. You can watch that and it'll go way more in depth on your glute shape and how to train for it. Now that we established the muscles and specifically where they grow, what they look like, I want to emphasize that you cannot change your bone structure, period. Okay, you can grow muscle in different areas, but essentially the way it looks on you is the way that it's meant meant to be, and it looks perfect on you. So I wouldn't base my goals on like, oh my God, I love her hips, I want my hips to look like hers. No, she doesn't have your body, or they don't have your body. Focus on you and what you can grow and what you can enhance and what your body will allow you to do. Also, fat distribution, right? I have a heart shape, so I knew off the bat, okay, I needed to do more lunges for the shelf, for the projection, and I need to focus on my glute medius in order to just evenly shape everything out and enhance that hourglass. So know you and your body shape and your fat distribution, because that's important. And again, fat distribution, there's no body type that's like better than the other. That doesn't exist, okay? Just focus on you and your goals. Very soon, I'm gonna put out guides based on specific glute shapes so that you can train according to your goals. And I'm sure that'll make it way easier for people who are, just wanna cut through all the bullshit and just wanna focus on what they wanna focus on. That was it for now. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and there's a lot more to come. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.